Good evening, everyone. We are back with another Disney review. Apologies for the lateness of this. I don't think we've ever been on time like the last couple of weeks, but we had a couple of technical issues before this with internets going out and everything like that. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we're okay now. We can power on through because this is a pretty special one tonight. We've finally arrived back at the feature films now. And of course, we are at number 12 this week. We're getting through them ever so slowly, but we're here at Cinderella, the 1950 film. We've hit a new decade and a new era for Disney because this movie was big. There was a lot riding on this film, which I never even realised until we've been doing these week to week.
Do you know what isn't big?
Go on.
The size of her feet. She is size 4.
She has some dainty feet in this. Yeah.
Very
Which makes me wonder what size feet. Is it Anastasia or Drusilla at the end where it barely goes over like the ball of her foot?
It's not even halfway.
Yes, she's got like freakishly huge feet or something. Cinderella. We usually kind of start with memories of this film, whether we watched it as a kid, whether we enjoyed it then or didn't enjoy it then, if our opinions have changed now, which is always interesting. And as always, I'm going to start with you. Cinderella. Tell me about your history with this, and not the band from the 80s that you love so much.
I have no idea who they are. Do you know what? It's weird because my opinion hasn't changed at all. I watched it again today, earlier, and it hasn't changed literally at all. I watched it and it's just as good.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered whether I'd go in thinking, oh, it's better than I remember, or, you know what, not actually as good, or anything like that. But I watched it and I enjoyed it just as much. I went, no, that was good. And I ended it thinking exactly the same. It's a very, very good movie. It's very fun. It's very colourful. It's very, not just colourful in terms of the actual colours, but like the colourful, in the way that they're acting and everything like that, and the way the characters are colourful characters. The voices, like obviously Jack and all the, so much personality. The whole thing is, even to the point where like her slippers sparkle, all that kind of stuff, the whole thing. I say slippers. I was thinking it was the boss. Her glass shoes. Like, do you know what I mean? Like the whole thing is just. It's got so much personality, and I was even saying this to you before. Like the animation is. We'll go on to how I think it's changed, but it's. I think it's very colourful in terms of you can really see the standout characters in comparison to the actual set itself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It's very theatrical. Kind of by design. I messaged you earlier when I was watching this film saying that some of the facial animation on specifically Lady Tremaine, but a lot of the human characters in this, like the fairy godmother and even Cinderella herself, I was wondering if they'd done any rotoscoping or if they used any kind of live action reference, and they did a lot of it. In fact, apparently the whole film was shot in live action, kind of like on a soundstage or whatever with actors, but and then they used that as reference, almost verbatim, I think. I don't think there was much creative freedom when it came to the human stuff and the staging. You can kind of see that in the camera work and how certain shots are filmed. It almost feels live action in some ways, especially when you've got the characters interacting with each other, like Cinderella interacting with the stepmom and walking into the bedroom. You can feel that would almost be like a set or something. But yeah, this was a big one. This was one that I had as a kid. I didn't watch it loads as a kid. I kind of watched it semi-frequently. But, as a kid, I was much more drawn to stuff like Aladdin or Hercules, or I guess you could say like more of the boy Disney films, I guess, or Lion King and things like that, the classics of the 90s. But I did have this one, and I did watch it occasionally. But I haven't watched this film probably since I was a child. It's not one that I've watched at all. It definitely well over, but possibly even 2 decades. That's actually terrifying to think about. So yeah, I had a lot of fond memories of this. Like, I remember a lot of the songs, and like Lucifer the cat I really enjoyed as a kid and things like that. The villains as well, Lady Tremaine. This was actually like a weird thing, and I was listening out for it today. The name Lady Tremaine, I never remembered them actually saying that in the actual movie. I thought that was through, like Chernabog never actually gets named in Fantasia, but you just become aware that that's his name through merchandise or whatever it happens to be. I thought that was the same with Lady Tremaine, but they do actually mention it once when they're announcing Drusilla and Anastasia at the ball. They say, and they're in care of Lady Tremaine or something like that, and I was like, oh, okay, they do say it. So I clocked
It's
that
a
this
French
time.
name, isn't it?
Oh, sorry?
It's a French name, isn't it, Tremaine?
I guess it would be, yeah. I mean, you were kind of telling me about the history of the story of Cinderella, which
It's
I
Egyptian,
was.
isn't it?
It goes back. I didn't realize how far it went back. You know how a lot of these are based on Grimm's fairy tales, and they're kind of those Germanic fairy tales and everything like that that we all come to know and love. There is I guess, sort of like more of a more renowned telling of the story of Cinderella, but if you're talking about like the actual conceit of the story and where it blossomed from initially, it's a folklore tale that's been told throughout the ages, but it goes all the way back to what year was it?
Yeah, it was like 1 BC. It was,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah. The thing is, I think it's one of those where, like you say, it's just a story that's developed over time, and it's quite interesting to see because I think so far it's one of the oldest that I know of in terms of that it goes back to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rags to riches story, basically, isn't it? It's and it'll be very, very accessible in all walks of life from all corners of the world. I think initially it originated in Greece, was it? And it has some links to Egypt. Um, but the more common telling of the story is the French one, which is I can't speak French. Cendrillon, I think, which translates to the little glass slipper. And
She's
that's the main
also
thing.
she's also the oldest princess. She's 20 something, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, but she's
yeah.
she's the oldest, and the second oldest is would be Tiana.
The I was reading about sort of the how the plot and the story was developed over the years, and specifically like the character of Cinderella as well. And initially they were going to write her up as like a 16-year-old kind of princess. And when I read that, I was thinking, oh well, that's kind of like Ariel when we get to Little Mermaid, when she says, "I'm 16 years old, I'm not a child." But just the way that Cinderella holds herself and the voice, and actually, I want to check how old the Ariel voice actress was when she played Ariel, but I've got to assume she's like a lot older than 16, the voice actress for Ariel. But yeah, this was going to be an interesting one for me because I mean, we did the package films, and there were high points and there were some low points, and there was a lot of points where we were just kind of ambivalent. And it was a lot of weeks getting those package films done. So this was just kind of a breath of fresh air today, just to get back to these and sort of glancing ahead at all the ones that we've got coming up as well now. Like, we're good. We're back. We're back to fine form with this one. I mean, the history of this one, if you've been following our retrospectives, or even if you know the year that this came out, you know that this is, we're post-war now. We're out of World War Two, and the Walt Disney Company before this point was on the verge of bankruptcy. I think they were like $4 million in debt, a string of failures at the box office, not through any fault of Disney's own. It's just, there was a lot of stuff going on in the world at that point. There was a goddamn war going on. So Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Bambi were all massive losses, purely because the finances and the connections they had to the European markets were cut off during that time. Eventually, over subsequent years, when these films would get re-released in theatres and everything like that, they would get their money back in the long run. But at the time, the company needed a hit. And they'd done a string of these package films, some of which were sanctioned by the government and were propaganda pieces. Other ones were kind of, what ideas do we have on the cutting room floor? What are we working on at the moment? Let's chop them up and just get them out there. But Disney requested, he said, like, look, if this company is to survive, we need to go back to feature films. I think initially they were given like a $1 million budget, which grew to, like, I think it almost doubled to like 2.2. But thankfully, I mean, for the history of the future of the company, we can look back on this one that this was a massive critical hit, critical acclaim. Apparently, it was the second biggest hit after Snow. Well, it would be because of the war, but it was the biggest hit since Snow White. Everyone loved this one. I think this was a very safe choice as well because it is so similar to Snow White, that classic fairy tale. It's sort of like going a back to basics approach with it. It's nominated for 3 Academy Awards, Best Scoring of a Musical Picture, Best Sound Recording, and Best Original Song. You often find that with a lot of these Disney films, that's the category that it gets nominated in, but I actually don't think there was a Best Animated at the time, was there? Because it was still a fairly new thing. Wasn't that Beauty and the Beast that came in?
Yeah,
I
that
think
I
it
don't
was
know if it was
that.
that one, but yeah.
Well, it was around that time, but yeah, this thankfully this was a massive success for the company, and was one that was loved by everyone at the time, and is a classic. Of course it's a classic. We're reviewing all the classics, but definitely if you're looking at the history and the importance of certain films coming out, I mentioned this to you the other day, like Snow White as that first one. He what did he do? He took out like 2 mortgages out on his house or something, or whatever it was, in order to pay for it. Gambled everything on it, and it was a massive success. And then I'd say the next big tentpole film was this one that everything was riding on, and here we are with Cinderella.
Yeah, it's the thing is, it's a lot of comparisons in terms of like where she's crying with the dress thing, very Snow White. There's a lot that's the same, with the the pulling on the dress. It's like the animals and a lot of it. Watching it is very
stepmom kind of character as well, because the evil queen was a stepmom as well, I think, wasn't she?
Who is also voiced by the same person in Kingdom Hearts. When I say the same person, I don't mean of the original. I mean the chick that does this evil queen does Lady Tremaine, and she does Maleficent. She does that, which weird. Well, coincidentally, the original Maleficent and the original Lady Tremaine are the same person.
Yeah, Eleanor Audley. I guess we can sort of like go into characters and everything now, because the villains are always my favorite. They always were as a kid. I don't know what that says about my psychology as a kid, but the villains were always the most funnest. They had the best songs. They had the most personality. And yeah, Lady Tremaine was great. Just from a voice alone, the sort of like elegance and genuine like terror that she brings, like how she's quite calm in how she talks, and then all of a sudden she can just snap, and like you're like, oh, holy shit. Maleficent is, out of the 2 characters, Maleficent's obviously my favorite, but very similar kind of character. Not just the fact that it's the voice actress, but that mannerism that she brings to the character.
She's
definitely
a
powerful character.
Lady Tremaine's definitely that. Did they mention exactly how old Cinderella was when Lady Tremaine came into her life?
No, I don't think they give a specific age.
But I know it was like as a kid, like she was a kid, because you obviously see that her daughters are children as well.
Yeah.
When she's there, so she's a kid. She's definitely that one that behind closed doors would like scratch Cinderella, or like make her, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do weird things, and she was definitely that kind of person, like on the sly.
Well, apparently they said when she was, I think they say in the film, when she was married to Cinderella's father, she was fine, and it was only after his death where her true colours started to show. So
it's why I say behind closed doors, no one knows. Yeah. She just used to like stab her and like get like a hot spoon and like just like put it on her forehead or something weird.
Really abusive, fucked up shit. Yeah. I never noticed this before, but I was kind of watching it because it takes quite a while before Lady Tremaine comes into the film properly. I mean, she's in the opening prologue, I guess. You see some shots of her with her 2 daughters and everything like that. But the way that she's introduced later in the film almost feels like a character introduction. Like, this is the first time that we're seeing this character. And I often wondered, like, I kind of wish they'd have kept Lady Tremaine in the shadows in the prologue a little bit, like you don't properly see her. Because if they'd have saved that, and the reveal of her character is when Cinderella walks into the bedchambers and it's dark and she's like in the 4-poster bed, and there's that great shot where Lucifer jumps onto the bed and turns around, and you just see the cat's eyes, and then you just see Lady Tremaine's eyes, and then she comes into the light as the camera. I love that. Such a great shot. That's such a great villain introduction. But then I kept thinking of that. Oh, that's a great introduction shot, but it's not an introduction because we technically have already seen her and we know what she looks like from the opening. So that did cross my mind. But the anime, I was really paying more attention to the animation, and as I say, like the voice actress just exudes that personality in the character, but also the animation, the really subtle movements of the face and her expressions, and if she gives like a little smile, like you can tell everything that's going on in that character's mind from like the most subtlest of glances. And that's probably happened before with some of the animation. I know in Snow White it was really detailed and really good. A lot of that was due to the fact that a lot of it was straight up rotoscoped, so they were able to capture that detail. But I was getting those, and that's why I said, like, I wonder if this actually was rotoscope, but it must have just been like really, really good live action reference, and then the animators just did their thing. But yeah, not quite as a high point of Maleficent, who I still think is easily in like my top 3 favorite Disney villains. But
Probably the best villain ever
I love
made.
Tremaine. I love the personality. I love the voice. I love everything.
Yeah, Maleficent's definitely the best villain ever created in anything.
Yeah, I would
I
agree with
would
that.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I often think like I kind of wish she'd have voiced more characters. And this came out in 1950. It's not a decade I'm well versed in, and people like if these were famous people at the time or if they were still fairly low key. It probably wasn't until much later where they cast celebrity voices. I actually don't know about that. I think a lot of the people they cast were famous of, like the stage and theatre at the time, maybe singers, dancers, things like that. So I actually don't know if these people were super famous at the time. But yeah, they said that the one who
It
played
was
Lady
different back
Tremaine, for
then being
example,
famous
was
though,
known
wasn't it?
for a distinctive voice, and yeah, it just
It
said
was
she
a
was an
different kind of
actress. So.
it was a different kind of fame back then though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So now they're the famous people for this. They've already done voice in this, they've done this, whereas they wouldn't have had as much, feature work and all that sort of stuff. So it was a different kind of famous, whereas they could have been household names, but where would you know them from? Like
yeah.
now you go on the internet, you boom, you Google them, done. But you know what I mean? So I feel like it probably would have been a level, but a different kind of level.
And what's interesting about these films as well is, I mean, I keep saying this week to week, every time we do one of these, we discover that another one of these features was somewhat in production at various stages of production, years and years before it was actually released. So Disney apparently, this 1950s one is actually his second adaptation of the story of Cinderella. Apparently he did one
Yeah.
back in the early 20s, I think it was like 1922 or something, for the Laugh-O-Gram studio. And then apparently he wanted to do one for Silly Symphonies as well, but as they were throwing out ideas, they realised that it was going to be too expensive and just too big for a Silly Symphonies. So the idea was shelved, and they thought about maybe doing it as a feature. And yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there. I think that it was on the go, and then Disney had to put it on hold because they were working on other films, I think, at the time, weren't they? Like the Song of the South, and I think Treasure Island were being worked on or something, and Disney was out of the country, and they had to. He kind of sanctioned some people. I think there were like 3 directors on this thing, and they had to be in constant communication with him, with script ideas and concept art and things they were doing, but they'd do a lot of work on the project, and then Disney might come back when they couldn't get in contact with him. And Disney had come back and ultimately he was the guy who was like, yes, we're going to go with that. No, we're not going to go with that. And he might come in and they could have been working on something for months. He'd be like, yeah, no, I want you to change that little thing, which would then set them back ages because they'd have to like redo a whole bunch of stuff. So it's not the most ideal of circumstances, but it just seemed like it was a constantly developing project. And I think at the time as well, they had 3 projects on the go, which are actually our next 2 that we're going to review. They had Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan all in various stages of development. And I think it got to the stage where Alice in Wonderland and Cinderella were being worked on simultaneously through 2 parts of the company. And it was like, right, whichever one gets finished first is the one that we're going to release next. I think they were talking about ones like, was it like Wind in the Willows and stuff? I can't remember what he was saying, but that wouldn't work because the characters are too cold or something. And I think it comes down to that Cinderella was definitely the safer bet, I would say, out of the 2. Or Alice in Wonderland, the characters were too weird and cold, and it's not really your tour de force film. Like when you've been gone for so many years doing package films, you want to come out with a bang. Maybe Alice in Wonderland isn't the better one of the 2. I definitely think the right choice was Cinderella, and I think progress was just going faster on Cinderella anyway, so ultimately that forced their hand that was going to be the next one. But yeah, I do really like Alice in Wonderland. That's our next one next week. I can't wait for that one.
To be fair, it's kind of like when Van Halen did Van Halen 3, and then they disappeared obviously for a little bit, and they had to come back with Dave Lee Roth, because if they didn't, you know what I mean, it would have been just kind of come back gradually. You need to come out of a bang, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Do.
It's the same thing. But speaking of it's her in terms of not as a person, but as like a character. She was the one Disney always related with the most.
Mm-hmm.
With the whole, having to work so hard for something and not get noticed for it, which is basically one of the things that, is what she does essentially. But I've read that Disney actually related to her the most because of that. which was an interesting thing to read, to be fair.
I think there was actually there were two people working on the character for Cinderella. I'm just trying to find it here. Yeah, here we go. Eric Larson and Mark Davis. They were both tasked on designing and animating the character, and I think they actually had a fallout at one point, or they had a squabble or something, because they I don't know whether it was based on the character's appearance, like one wanted to go younger, like to make her a 16-year-old, and the other one wanted to make her like this glammed up model, and I think they settled on like a medium of the two. I don't even know, but they did use live action reference for Cinderella. It was Helen Stanley or something, and a lot of her physical attributes you can definitely see it in the representation of Cinderella in the movie. But also her mannerisms, they were talking about her personality and how there was a conflict on how they wanted to act. I think there was a part which was scrapped very early on. She was going to be a bit more feisty. She was going to bite back against the stepmom and the stepsisters a little bit more. She was going to kind of stick up for herself. I actually don't know much about the original story of Cinderella, as is the case with most of these, like certainly Pinocchio and things like this. I don't know much about the original source material. The Disney film is kind of my reference for a lot of these stories.
But did you know she was meant to cut off her, well, not cut off her foot, but cut her foot, like cut her toes off and stuff, so it could, well, not her, the stepsisters, so it could fit into the shoe.
Is that in the original story?
Yeah, they would cut off like parts of their foot and stuff so that it would actually fit into the
Oh my
the
god,
shoe.
this is like fucking Saw.
Yeah, that was a thing. Which one was it Snow White where she had to the evil queen had to dance in those slippers until she died, like in cold slippers or something?
Yeah, there was an article ages ago. It was like all the fucked up Disney endings.
Yeah,
that they could
but
go
yeah,
with.
this was one of them. It was like they cut off like their toes and stuff like that to fit into the shoe.
That's so messed up.
It's great, isn't it?
But yeah,
that would have been good if
it
made the final
a scene
cut.
where like Cinderella throws the tray back in like the stepmom's face or something like that, and says
that
like,
wouldn't
no,
have had much of an effect.
That's
though.
when they lock her in the room after she like.
So, I wouldn't have liked.
I don't know. I think that would have really, really changed the character.
Yeah.
I think, and they didn't want to make her as passive, but I don't think she's quite passive. I like the character of Cinderella a lot more than Snow White. I will say that. Maybe that's down to the voice or just how she conducts herself, because there is that level of pathos there. Like, you do genuinely feel bad for her when she reports to the stepmom and she's like, that giant carpet we've got, clean it, clean all the tapestries, and she's like, I already did that, and she's like, just do them again. She's like, oh my god, this poor woman. But you know, she gets on with it, and so I really like the character. Is she the most well-written character ever? No, like they could have definitely have spent more time with Cinderella. I think a lot of the movie, I actually didn't remember how much of the movie is spent on all of the mice and Lucifer shenanigans. There's a part where the plot just fucking stops, and you are just watching Jack and Gus and Rucifer just do Tom and Jerry antics for like 10 minutes.
It's very similar to Bambi in the sense of, remember how you said you don't really remember the second half?
Yeah.
It's kind of like this in the sense of, everyone thinks of Cinderella, she marries the prince, she does this, and you know, the whole like her, you know, in their dress and stuff. But realistically, that's only like it's the last half an hour of the movie with the whole thing happening. But after the ball is like the last 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not very long. You know, majority is in the house, and then, like you say, with the mice and stuff, and then there's that. It's a very well-paced movie. There's a lot going on in the, hour and a half?
70 minutes.
Yeah, well, all right. Look, there's a lot going on in that time. It's very well done. It's not like it's rushed. It doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel like there's not anything going on. There's actually a lot. Like, you watch it, and there's scene after scene after scene after scene after scene, and it's very, very well paced.
Yeah, part of me, I mean, again, I don't know the original story, but I'm thinking that a lot of it had to be padded. That they were like, right, we're going to make this a feature film. We need to add stuff in to justify the runtime. So every time I see those scenes with the mice and Lucifer, I'm thinking it does feel like it's stalling for time a little bit to drag it out. Maybe we could have got more time with the prince and Cinderella. I get the idea that their time is quite fleeting, and that's the whole point of it, that he doesn't get to know her all that much, that, you know, they spend the night together, like a couple of hours or whatever it happens to be, it's through montage, and then she's gone, and he's like, whoa, where are you going? So you don't want to spend ages there, but maybe we could have spent more time with the prince instead of that. I don't know, but this, I mean, it's designed for children, isn't it? And as a kid, I loved all the mice, and as I say, Lucifer was my favorite character. So I guess as a kid, I do remember that stuff, and that's what it's designed to be. It's well animated, it's well choreographed, it's fun. Like I didn't hate it or anything like that. But I do. I would have liked. This is just me as I'm older now. It's just like, oh, I would have liked a little bit more on the characters. Let's spend a bit more time with Cinderella
He
and
doesn't even have a name though.
who? Oh, the prince. Yeah, it's just Prince
Yeah,
Charming.
which
Yeah.
I didn't realize until literally very recently. I was under the impression as a kid that, I mean, well, I didn't know what his name was, but I was under the impression he was Prince someone. Then I found out, I was like, oh, he doesn't actually have a name. You know what I mean? He's just Prince Charming, like in Snow White.
I wondered that because I mean, yeah, in Snow White he doesn't have a name either. It's just the prince, isn't it? But I'm fine with that because that's more archetypes, as I was saying. It's a traditional story, and it's the king, the prince, or whatever it happens to be, and that's the evil queen. That's all you need. That's the character that they are playing. That's fine. And I guess it's kind of the same in this one as well a little bit. But then also jumping forward to Beauty and the Beast, people call him like Prince Adam, but he's not named in the movie. So again, I don't know if that's merchandise. I don't know if that was eventually revealed in one of the sequels or the failed TV pilot or a book or something, and people have just extrapolated the name and put that on the character. So I don't know. There's two sequels to this thing. There's a Cinderella. What is it? Cinderella 2, a new beginning. What's it called? Cinderella 2 Dreams Come True, which came out in 2002, which I had on video during that whole slew of Disney sequels. And then there was a Cinderella 3 A Twist in Time, which goes into more in depth into the prince, actually. So I want to see if he actually gets a name.
Speaking of Beauty and the Beast, doesn't she refer to him as Beast, like to himself?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Which I find a bit weird. You'd think like you'd be like, "Can you just call me by my name, please?" Like a bit weird, isn't it? Like,
it's like, well, how long's he? Well, here's the thing with Beauty and the Beast. It's like when you get to the sequel, I guess he was like a young teenager, maybe when he got cursed. Yeah. So I was gonna say, is he hit a point where he's just forgotten his name, or he's just, I'm a beast now. I'm just gonna run with that. That's just who I am. That's my identity. I'm a beast. So.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, in Kingdom Hearts when Sora always calls him Beast. I'm like, look, you're supposed to be friends. Call him fucking Adam or Wayne or whatever his name is. Do you know what I mean? I'd be like, I want to humanize you again.
Let's see. What else was I going to mention here? The design of the fairy godmother, because apparently Disney always envisioned fairies as like tall, sort of like regal characters. If you think of like the blue fairy in Pinocchio, that's how he wanted the fairy godmother to look like. And I think it was one of the character designers, the director and animator, Milt Kahl, was like, I've got a different idea, slightly unconventional. She's going to be like an old grandma. She's going to be like an old woman. It's a really protective, motherly kind of character to her. I think that was definitely the right decision. I like the design of the fairy godmother, and we haven't talked about music for a long time. We kind of fleetingly mentioned it here and there, but I know when we started off this retrospective and we had like a whole bunch of Disney songs to talk about, we'd always pick our favourite one. I guess the most famous one is Bibbidi-Bobbidi-Boo. That's the one that everyone seems to sing. Would you say that's your favourite song from the film, or do you have a different one?
I would always say it's my favourite. It's because the thing is, the others are good, but it's the most upbeat one. It's the most, like say, memorable. It's not as long as I remember it as a kid. When I watched it again, I was like, I thought, like when it finished, I went, oh, that's quite. It's only like a minute or so, or whatever it is. And it's also the one that 3 Dragon Ball characters are named after.
Oh, right.
Yeah, there's a character called Bibbidi and a character called Bobbidi, which is his son, and then he has one of the other characters called Boo.
Oh, no way, I didn't know that.
And I only realised that reference when I was about 12 because someone pointed it out, and I was sat there like, huh, you're right.
That's crazy.
That's pretty cool. But I would say, that's my favourite one. I mean, even like, because it's the most upbeat. I think it's the most energetic, and it's the most fun with the animation at the same time. And it's also, wasn't this the first movie to have its music copyrighted?
Well, I was just looking here. I don't know if this is the same thing. It says this film also marked the launching of the Walt Disney Music Company. So I'm not sure if that comes into the copyright or not. But it was also a first in using multi-tracks for vocals for the songs as well. So, yeah, a first of a lot of things. I don't know about the copyright thing, though. Maybe.
That's what I read somewhere. I did read that it was the first to have it copyrighted. It was the first Disney movie to have it copyrighted. It
Mm.
also plays in the background in the world in Kingdom Hearts, so it's really cool.
Let me just have a look at the music here. So there's like a whole bunch of ones
It's
here.
got a very under the sea feel to it. You know, like
Yeah.
that upbeat, very. That's what you associate the movie with.
So my favourite one in the film, actually, it's not Bibbidi-Bobbidi-Boo. It's
Nightingale.
probably "A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes." I love the melody to that song. It's one of it crops up throughout the film in like the score and everything. That to me is like the main. I'd say that's the main theme, but then I always forget there is actually a Cinderella main theme at the very beginning where they're doing like the opening credits over RKO Productions. But that never really comes back into it all that much. I don't think, Cinderella. That what I don't think of that like.
You know,
When, yeah, go on.
I was going to say it's all got a similar vibe going forward to like Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan. You know, they've all got that similar vibe now.
Yeah.
These next string of movies, which is really cool.
Yeah, as I said, I love that sort of like male and female chorus intro that you get in so many of these earlier Disney films. It's a nice trip down memory lane when Disney was good, and I enjoyed it, and it was nice. But yeah, "Dream
And
Is a
there were
Wish Your Heart
bubbles
Makes" is
everywhere.
probably my favorite. I do really like "Sing Sweet Nightingale" as well. Obviously, when Cinderella's singing it, it's a beautiful song anyway, like really nice melody. But that's one of the scenes that always stuck with me was Drusilla and Anastasia in their recital with Tremaine on the piano. I always forget which one is it. Drusilla on the flute, Anastasia singing. And the
Do you know
sing
what?
sweet
Yeah, I can't remember which way around they are. Isn't the green one? I can't remember now.
The green one's Drusilla and the pink one's Anastasia, I believe.
Isn't Anastasia on the flute? I can't remember. Do you know what? That's going to annoy me now, but I think it is. But
I
did you notice the hidden Mickey in the bubbles?
No, I didn't. Shit.
Yeah,
Was that the
they.
first thing to be the hidden Mickey thing, or have they done that before?
I feel like it is because I can't remember any from the other ones, but that was a nice little hidden Mickey comes about and they like in the bubble shapes when they go together and then they disappear, and I thought that was really cool.
Oh crap! I know. I'm gonna have to look out for that.
But the
That
first feature Mickey was in was Fantasia, wasn't it? So it would make
Yeah,
sense that it was after.
yeah, because I know the character's popularity was dipping, wasn't it? And that's why they did the Sorcerer's Apprentice scene in Fantasia to boost it. So I don't know what level of popularity he was at in 1950. I'm guessing it was pretty high. I mean, you had Fun and Fancy Free as well with the character. Let me just have a look here real quick. So apparently there was going to be a bunch more songs in this film, which was quite interesting to read. So it says in 1940, I'm reading off Wikipedia here, 1946, story artist and part-time lyricist Larry Morey joined studio music director Charles Walcott to compose the songs. And it said that Cinderella would sing 3 songs, "Sing a Little, Dream a Little," when she was working. You had the mouse song as she dressed the mice. The dress my mum wore, as she talks about her mum's old wedding dress that she remembers. And then apparently the whole like dancing in the cloud sequence was going to be so that was like a concept that was going to be used in Snow White, apparently, that they were going to move to this one. They were going to have a song dancing on a cloud during the waltzing scene. Then she was going to sing "I Lost My Heart at the Ball." The prince was going to get a song, "The Face That I See in the Night." This would have been packed with songs, and that would have been a very, very different film, I think. I think the amount of songs the film has is fine. It's not... When I think of a musical Disney film, this isn't always the first one that comes to mind, similar to Sleeping Beauty. I know that Sleeping Beauty's got a bunch of songs, and it's got that... It was turned into a... I don't think it was in Sleeping Beauty originally. I think it was like a ballet or something, and they took the song from it. And then they repurposed it in Sleeping Beauty. But I like all the songs in this film. I think they fit the film well, and I think any more would have just like completely slowed the pacing down of a film. This isn't a film that you want to drag out and out. It's quite economic with its storytelling. As I said, sometimes the story pauses when you have the Lucifer and Gus Gus stuff, and that's more like your wacky comedy relief. But even that has a point at the end of the film, because you have that whole like cat and mouse chase with the key at the end, the final act, where it's that race against time to get Cinderella out of the rooms. It adds a little bit more urgency to the end of the film. Also, Lucifer. I know they did the sequels, but if we forget about the sequels for a second, does Lucifer die? Lucifer falls out of a fucking high tower out of the window.
Yeah, but Cat's got 9 lives.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah,
he lands on his feet. He's all good.
sure. There was that whole
Do
thing.
you know what? They should have done that. They should have had 9 times something happens, or 8 times.
Yeah. It's like Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns or something.
Yeah.
One thing that I did want to talk about, and you alluded to this at the beginning, and we were chatting about this a little bit earlier. So, the various restorations of this film, and the latest restoration that we had was actually one that came out last year. So it was the anniversary of the film, I think. Oh no, it was to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the company. They picked this film to restore, and it was a 4K restoration. It was available on Disney Plus from the end of August. I think it was like August 25th. They actually went to and let me see where they went to. It was they actually got like the original 35mm. Was it from the studios, or was it from some kind of museum? Anyway, they got the original Technicolor 35mm print, the Library of Congress, there we go, and they rescanned it in 4K. They went in frame by frame and removed all the dirt and the grit from it and cleaned it all up. Now that's a noble endeavor. Like, I'm fine with restoring film footage like that. That's absolutely fine, especially, because they went to the original source and they've been meticulous with it. It's not like a haphazard job, but when you look at the final results compared to what the original was, so much of the detail has been lost. The color is completely different. They haven't sort of like taken what the initial coloring was and boosted it or added more saturation and stuff. It is a totally different feel. You can look at scenes from side by side, like Cinderella's hair color's different. The dress has lost so much of the line work and the detail. Entire colours of the backdrop have changed. Sometimes the backdrop they've added so many crushed blacks into the image that you, like, what was this, like, ethereal backdrop? It's just like a straight black background now. You can't see anything. And I've only seen like a handful of shots of that. God knows like what the rest of the film's like. But even watching it on DVD, I'm not sure what year this DVD came out. This copy. This would have been around the time that the Blu-ray was released, and I think even the Blu-ray kind of fucked with the colors completely, because when I was watching this today, you mentioned it as well, you felt like the animation looked quite cheap. It didn't look as detailed. It
didn't flow,
wrong.
I didn't think, as well as it should have.
And that's not how I remember watching it on VHS. Now, I still do have the VHS. I still have a VCR. I could check, but from my memories of watching it as a kid, just like the whole color palette like the feel of the film fell off, and that is achieved through color correction and various things like that. So
can
if
you
this
still buy
is like
VCR?
a copy of, like, I know this is on DVD, but if this was around the time of the Blu-ray, I'm just trying to check if they fucked with anything during that, because they probably did the same thing. They, color restoration and whatnot. If you want to talk about that for a bit while I just check.
Like, when did you get the VCR? Like, back in when it was released?
I'm just having a look at the history of when everything was released here, because it will probably tell me here.
So I was going to say, like, it would be good to. I should have watched the comparison. I was gonna, but even the stairs that she walks down is a different color.
Yeah.
In the palace, it's all. It's one of the. But when you restore things, they do usually when you see movies restore stuff, the first time is always quite cool, or the second time. Usually by the third time, it kind of changes it a lot. But you are going to get that with a lot of old movies. It's just the way of the world.
That's probably the version that I got right there. So apparently it was originally released on VHS and Laserdisc back in 1988. And then it was put in the Disney Vault, which is, I actually think is probably like a real thing. It's like a prison where they
Well, apparently they got rid of it.
Yeah, so it was put back in the vault in 1989, and then there was a digitally remastered edition of the film released on VHS in 1995. That's probably the version that I got. I remember the VHS being like a pink cassette tape or something. I'll see if I can find a picture real quick, and I'll bring it up on the stream.
When you think Disney Vault, do you ever think of one of those big, like, you spin the wheel, you open the giant door?
Yes, yeah,
and
exactly
it's just
that
on its own on a little table.
This was the one this would have, I have seen the original VHS cover, but this was the one that I had. I'm going to save the image and I'm going to try and bring it up on screen, which I haven't done before. This is going to be interesting. Save a copy of that.
I don't remember it being pink though, but I remember having it as a kid, but I don't remember it being pink.
I'm just going to drag it onto the stream now.
I wonder if you can still buy the pink one. It's like £2,000.
So let's see, is that going to be... Ooh, no, I don't want to fuck with that. JPEG. There we go. Oh, it's really tiny. That's what she said. Come on, drag the fucking picture. There we go. That's a little bit better. You can't see that on the stream, can you? I just realised.
No.
But yeah, that's the VHS that I had somewhere. I think it's downstairs. It's the classics, and the word classics is in like a gold ribbon on the spine of the video. You got that Mickey Mouse silver hologram thing on the side of the spine.
Yes, I remember those. I had all that. Yeah, I don't remember it being pink though.
Yeah, it was like a bright cerise kind of pink. So yeah, I would have had the 95 remastered edition of the movie. I'm just seeing if there was any... let's just see. On October the 4th, 2005, Disney released the film on DVD with a digitally remastered transfer. The Platinum Edition was also released on VHS, but the only special feature... Okay,
I remember the Platinum Edition.
DVD... on October the 2nd, 2012, a 3-disc Blu-ray DVD digital copy combo called the Diamond Edition was released. I remember when that came out. Cinderella was re-released on HD digital download on 2019. And then it got in 2023 it got that 4K restoration.
Wait, hold on. 2019? There was digital downloads back in 2019?
Yep. Apparently.
Almost half a decade ago there was already digital downloads.
Yeah.
Mad.
So I'm guessing this DVD was probably this would have been the 2012 one, I guess, the 2012 Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway,
back when physical media was a thing.
But it's interesting. It does change the feel of the film. It really, really does. I'm gonna have to try and see if there's any. I didn't see any video comparisons of the two. I only saw pictures, but it'd be interesting to go back. Anything else to talk about this movie? Favorite scene, favorite piece of animation in the film? Any parts that you can think of?
One of my favorite is when the prince's dad doesn't have a name, does he? The king.
I think he does, doesn't he?
Because I don't remember it.
Oh no, it's just the king.
Yeah, you know when what's his name? The assistant, the dude that with the monocle that goes to find Cinderella and all that.
Oh yeah,
where he goes,
the Grand Duke, is it? Yeah, the Grand Duke.
Yeah. And then he says that she's got away, and then he gets really angry and he goes red. That's one of my favorites.
Is that where they're jumping on? He's got the sword and he's like slicing at him.
Yeah, that's it. That's my favorite. It's just that very classic kind of, you see him go red and it all check like that. Do you know what I mean? I think that's really, really cool. And the monocle breaks and everything, and yeah, I think that's wicked.
He reminds me of. I don't think he's the king, but in Sleeping Beauty, you've got the king and his best friend. It's the father of the prince, basically. The king is Aurora's father, and then this other guy, and it's almost the same character design, I want to say. Okay, maybe not, but I don't know if it's voiced by the same character, the same actor. Sorry.
This is a generic history question, but you know how like in Sleeping Beauty they have she's the princess, and obviously he's the prince of somewhere else, different family, different people. Otherwise it'd be incest and all that shit. Like. Is that a thing? Because we have like a King of England. There's no like Prince of Yorkshire and the Queen of like Scotland. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do have the Queen of Scotland, but you know what I mean. You don't have like the Prince of Yorkshire, the Queen of Southampton. What I'm saying is that an actual thing, or is that just a fairy tale thing?
No, I think that's the thing.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure it's a thing. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a historian, so I've got no grounds to back that up on. But
I don't know. Because the thing is, I don't think that is, because it's a bit weird. I don't. Well, no, it's not weird. I mean, I'd have to have a look in like actual like history stuff, but I didn't think that was a thing. I thought that was just a fairy tale thing because if you have a ruler, it's the ruler of the country rather than the whole like, oh yeah, he rules that village. That you know what I mean?
Well,
But I don't know.
you'd have like dukes and lords of places, and
She's also Cinderella's the first non-royalty princess.
Yeah, I guess so because it's a rags to riches story, isn't it? Yeah, she
Yeah,
marries
because
into
Snow
the
White was already part of, you know what I mean? She was already part of that
yeah.
family. But yeah, Cinderella's the first. She is not royal or anything, and she becomes one.
In the main classics, like this goes for a lot of the princesses. Actually, is she gets 2 appearances in the entire Disney classics line. When we eventually get to Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph breaks the internet. They go to that internet world, and all the Disney princesses are back in full CGI glory, and it's terrible and awful, and I hate that film, and I'm really not looking forward to getting to that one. I've got a lot to say
I
on
like
that
Wreck-It
film,
Ralph 1.
and that film will not have aged well in the slightest, but
Wreck-It Ralph 1 was great though.
Was it?
Yeah. It was amazing. I loved Wreck-It Ralph 1. Wreck-It Ralph 2
We'll get to it. It's not one of
was
my favorites.
upsetting, and it upset me for many reasons. And one of them is they had a real chance to put Sora in it. Not just I didn't care about Wreck-It Ralph being in Kingdom Hearts. I just thought it'd be cool if they put Sora in Wreck-It Ralph.
That would have been cool.
But they didn't do it, and it makes me really sad.
There was a scene before I talk about like my favorite bit of animation. There's a scene in this that's like really intense and terrifying, and I wanted to talk about it. I'm glad I remembered to. When Cinderella's running away and everything's urgent, and she leaves the slipper on the stair, and she goes like, forget about it. And the Duke's chasing after her, and he's like, stop, close the gates. And they just make it through the gates. And he's like, call out the riders. And then you get like the fucking 9 ring wraiths from Lord of the Rings in like red capes. They look like the headless horsemen from last week. The same kind of like weird. They don't really look like people. They're in the shadows. They're terrifying. They've got like the red cape billowing. They've got horses with fucking red eyes again. It's the headless horseman from last week, and they're fucking chasing her down. And I swear there's one scene they're like waving swords above their head. I'm like, okay, he said to stop them, but I don't think he meant stop her by slicing her a fucking part. That was a weird scene, and then like they're right on her tail, and everything turns back into what it was, and they have to get off the road quickly, literally like Lord of the Rings, get off the road, and then you just have all the hooves like come and trample the fucking pumpkin. What was that about? Who were they?
But it's also like the whole when he says, "Oh, she got away." Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
imagine,
they are.
You know, it's kind of weird in a lot of ways. Like, you know what I mean? Imagine a girl left behind. It's like, yeah, she got away. It's like, what are you doing to her? Like, do you know what I mean? It's that weird kind of. But I guess it's a different. The thing is, I think it's in a way. I do think it's a whole play on that kind of thing because she got away, and it's like let's just go full on. You know what I mean?
So this is a thing apparently. Hang on, I'm going to Cinderella gets chased by the headless horseman. Yeah, so this is a thing. People have been talking about this apparently. Let me bring this into here real quick. Hopefully you guys will be able to see this image. Not that one. Let me see if I can drag it in again. I'm still getting used to this, guys. I really want to try and go back to it. There we go. So it's these. Look, they look like... Oh, I really wish you could see these pictures, dude. It looks like fucking Sauron. This is just an image I found off the internet, and it says the Grand Duke sends these guys to chase Cinderella down, and they, the horsemen, not the horses, legit look demonic. Yeah, who are these guys? These shadowy fucking people. Yeah. Oh, this is a bit of a deep cut reference, potentially. Return of Jafar, the Aladdin sequel. Do you remember those horses that have, again, red eyes, and they like go over a waterfall, and they've got wings? They're like flying, evil, dark horses
Monkeys?
With red eyes.
Yes, yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, that scene. Anyway, I wanted to bring that up. It was just one that stood out. I didn't remember that. I didn't remember them chasing after her as a child. But my favorite bit of animation, and actually I think this was Disney's favorite bit of animation as well, other than the Lady Tremaine. Like I love her introduction, as I mentioned, where she's in the darkness and the light. The bit where she Is it where she realizes that I think she realizes that Cinderella is the one who went to the ball and won the prince's affections, and it does this close up on her face as she comes to that realization, and she's formulating a plan what she wants to do. But Walt Disney's favorite bit of animation, and I don't know if it was specific to this film or if he just meant in general, is the dress transformation. Like that one shot is so iconic to me.
What about when the horse they turn into, what is it? The horses turn into the carriage men.
Yeah.
Or you talk about like the whole thing, because you know when the horse is flying above the horse turns into carriage man himself, and he's flying kind of like in the air. Then he sits on the whole thing's very
So I really like that. Oh, another bit as well. I guess sort of like the love scene, the courtship scene between Cinderella and the prince. Some of the backdrops there, like the concept art, they're very static. They're very still. You can tell they're just a concept art. I think they're walking over a bridge or something over the river. And that's just a really nice shot there. That whole bit there where they're dancing and you've got the montage, just really, really gorgeous animation going on there. So yeah, there's not much personality to the prince, but again, with these older films, now you get people going like, you get Gal Gadot in an interview about the Snow White live action remake that's coming out, which I really hate bringing that up on a review for this. And they're like, oh, the original was dated and terrible because the prince basically stalks Snow White, and then she just kind of falls in love with him. Weird. And then you've got Gal Gadot who goes, yes, in this version she's not going to be saved by the prince. And I'm just like, fuck off. Like, get over yourself.
But
like,
why?
Does the prince have loads of character in this? No. Does Cinderella have loads of character? Not in particular. You know, she's not like this Shakespearean written character or anything like that. It's really deeply written character. But it's the archetypes again. It serves the plot. It's a very simple narrative, and you don't need to convolute it with all of this modern bullshit. Like, it just is what it is. I don't think Cinderella's particularly a passive character. I think she has a lot of pathos. I think you want to ultimately see her succeed, and she's she's quite capable in all the things that she does. She's just in like shitty circumstances and things like that. The prince, a lot of the prince characters, this is true of Snow White, this is true of this film, it's also true of Sleeping Beauty in a couple of weeks' time. They're not the most engaging of characters, but it's just that classic storytelling, classic fairy tales and things like that, archetypes. That's just what they were. The prince comes in, saves the day, slays the dragon, and rescues the damsel in distress. That's what it is, and that's what Disney used to be. And that, you know what? Storytelling like that, guess what? It's fucking fine to do that. It's fine to have a story with those tropes in. Okay, sorry, I'm getting down off my soapbox, but I'm just really passionate about this shit. Ugh.
Do you know what I hate?
What?
Gloves. Like, this isn't just a random thing I came out with. I mean, like, you know how like Cinderella, she's got the long gloves.
Oh, the silk glove, yeah.
Yeah, and Belle, she's got them. Like, I just really don't like them. I know it's a trope that princesses and shit have, but I just don't like them. I don't know why, but I'm never a fan. I just think if Cinderella didn't wear them, she'd look way better. I don't know. Like, I'm just not a fan. It goes
well with the outfit. I think it's fine.
I don't know.
Really I'd rather much attention to it. In all honesty, it's just been presented with like that's what it is.
I'd rather she wore like stockings or something. That's cool with me. Like, you know what I mean? But like, I'm not a big fan of gloves.
Fair enough. And you know what? In some corner of the internet, your dreams could probably, like Cinderella, your dreams could probably come true tonight.
Probably. We'll go down that rabbit hole later.
You'll probably be searching that after midnight though, rather than before midnight, I guess.
Yeah, that's what happened.
What? This is like me reading way too much into it, but I wondered if the horse and like the dog and the mice would have some kind of. Go on, sorry.
I just thought it came into my head now. You know when you talked about perfect shots, when she's walking up that long staircase and it's kind of at an angle. I remember this now. That is my favorite shot. Like, not just scene, but like the shot. You know, she's walking up staircase. Like I say, it's kind of at an angle. It's in the corner a little bit, and it's kind of backed away, and you just see it's an empty staircase, and she's walking up it. I think that is the best shot itself.
Yeah. As I say, like, because a lot of this was filmed in live action. Now, I'm not going to say they built like a fucking tower with endless staircases just to film live action references. Like, I'm pretty sure the animators have got that covered. They could do it. but how the camera's positioned, how things are shot, especially in like conversation scenes, it does almost feel like a live action thing. I think the way that the film was scored as well, like that the people who did the score for the film, that the film was done and just needed to be inked apparently, and that's when they had like a fully presented film to score, like ready to go. And apparently that's how a lot of live action films are done. And it wasn't really the way that animated films were done at the time. A lot of things were synchronized, like the music was synchronized on like a scene by scene basis, I guess. Probably how you get like that really good, like perfectly timed Looney Tunes type music. You know the kind of, or Animaniacs, things like that. I was going to mention something else. Oh yeah, so when like the horse and the dog and the mice turn into humans or horses, I always wondered if they had some like massive existential crisis, like the coachman, the horse that turns into the coachman. Is he now just fully human? Is he still aware that he's a horse? Can he speak human, or does he talk in neighs?
I swear I don't know what it was, but there was something I don't remember. I mean, like, it could be, but it could have been in a live action remake. There was like a reference to it, but I swear I've seen, or it could have been just a little short someone made, or it just could be in my head. I don't know. But where you see the coachman just on the floor eating grass, just sat
Oh
there.
right.
I can see it in my head. Maybe there's a reference to it or something. I don't
Yeah.
know, but it's funny you bring that up because I swear I can see it. I can see it in my head perfectly, like it's happened.
I mean, you've seen the live. I do want to say, yeah, I haven't seen the live action version, the Kenneth Branagh version. You have seen that, and from what I've heard,
It's
that in
yeah,
terms of Disney live action remakes, that was actually a good one because it was before all the craziness started fucking happening and before the
and it was
company
a
went
bit different.
insane.
It was a bit different, kind of like Christopher Robin. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a trying to, because the thing is, Beauty and the Beast was like shot for shot. You
Yeah,
know, like it's like when Psycho did that, it just didn't go well. You
yeah.
know,
So what's the point?
it's exactly. And Cinderella was a bit different. Like there was a lot of like her dad's in it and everything. There's a lot of differences, and it is good. Like you see the facts. The whole big first bit is the whole like her dad's there, then he goes away, and then so that's probably why as well it was good. It wasn't just the whole let's do the same fucking thing.
Hmm. Yeah. So you mentioned at the beginning that your opinion hasn't really changed on this film. It's kind of stayed the same. It stayed the same, or has it got stronger watching it again? Do you think it's
It no,
justified being a Disney classic?
it's it stayed exactly the same. It's justified as a Disney classic. It's got all the colourful aspects, but it's weird. It's kind of disappointing that it stayed the same. I went watching it thinking, oh, it's going to be, I'm going to find this, but it was very. I don't want to say bland because it's not. I think it's one of the top. I would even put it as like an S tier. Like it is one of the top. So I would never say it's bland, but it's one of those, like I say, I just haven't changed my opinion on it. It's exactly just as perfect as I thought it was before.
Mm.
It hasn't got any worse. It's just I think the animation suffered. I really do think that's changed and suffered quite a lot.
Yeah, from all like the modern transfers and things like that. I don't think I'd rank this as high as an S tier. I don't think I'd go that far. I really appreciate in terms of the Disney catalog and what it did, and if this film had have failed, if this had been like a massive commercial failure, we probably wouldn't be talking about Disney as much today. It probably it would have been done 4 million in debt. That's a lot to be in debt by. So I love what this story did. I love that they went back to the drawing board. Basically, there was like, right, what worked with Snow White, that classic story, let's tell it. You could tell that Disney was passionate about it, as you can tell with a lot of these projects. Like, even if he's not always there, he's constantly working. He's a very busy man. He's on his grind, but you could tell that he poured his heart and soul into these stories, and he knew what worked, and he knew how films needed to be crafted for the general audience, whilst also putting his passion into it, hiring the best people for the job as well, knowing what works. And that's just I mean, you don't see that with many companies nowadays. Well, you don't see it with a Disney company nowadays. Now it's like, we're going to do this thing to appease these people. We're going to do this because we have these messages that we want to put into the film, and we have these agendas that we want to push, rather than actually servicing the story and servicing the character and things like that. So it's kind of like a bygone era, basically, with Disney now going back to some of these. But it's a very important piece of animation. It's around this time, like, just looking ahead, I prefer other films around it, and I would definitely, like, Alice in Wonderland, I would watch 10 times over this film. Same with Peter Pan. I prefer Sleeping Beauty to this film. And
You also prefer Pinocchio.
Yeah, I prefer Pinocchio. Fantasia. I mean, I'd rather watch this one because it's a straight narrative. But like Fantasia, I love. That's a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. This is good. There's a lot of Lucifer and mice antics. There was a lot more of that than I remembered. But I still love the characters, the villains, the animation, and just the look of it. It's a classic fairy tale story of the princess and the prince, and that's when Disney's doing that, and it's great. Some of their strongest films are based on that, and it's absolutely fine. So yeah, good host of supporting characters in this one. I enjoyed going back to this one. I don't know when I'll next come back to it, but I expect I will at some point in the course of the rest of my life. But next week, unlucky for some, 13, lucky for us, because it's an absolute banger of a film, and I've watched this many times over the years, and I always go back and watch scenes from it, so I know I'm still going to like this film. We are going to be at Alice in Wonderland. Absolute classic. Probably... I don't know if it's my favourite adaptation of the story. It's one that I watched the most as a kid. There's another adaptation that came out, I think, in like the 90s or the early 2000s, with an all-star cast. You got like Whoopi Goldberg as the Cheshire Cat, Miranda Richardson as the Queen of Hearts. It's great. I'll talk about that one next week, but this was a big one. This was a big one growing up.
The first time I watched that, I do remember the TV I watched it on was giant, like big black screen. Do you know what I mean? It was one of those big boxes, and I also remember the carpet was green. I also remember that too.
It's amazing how the memory just like remembers these like really small details of places, like smells of places, or the way that things look, or the color of this, or where I was. And,
I remember the first time I watched it though. I don't remember her before she went to Wonderland. I know it's like 2 minutes she's on the she's thingy's reading a book to her, but I don't actually remember that. I just remember her in Wonderland. So I feel like
talking about this one.
Yeah. What I'm saying is I think it's weird because the whole thing's set in Wonderland. Maybe my brain just forgot it. But I think I might have just, as a kid, what it's like, it's halfway through the movie or whatever. I think I started it like when she was literally drinking the potion.
She gets to Wonderland very quickly in the film, and I mean that's because it's again it's 75 minutes, so it's got to be economic with a runtime. But I know she's with a cat, Dinah, and she's sitting under a tree, and then I think that's when she sees the White Rabbit straight away. So it's pretty much into it right from the off, I think.
And then she fights the Jabberwocky.
No, not in this version. She doesn't. Oh no, not that. Oh, we've got to talk about the Tim Burton bullshit next week as well, haven't we? As well, I suppose. But yeah, no, there's going to be plenty to say next week. It's one of my favourite stories as well. One of my favourite children's books, Alice in Wonderland. So we're going to have plenty to talk about. We're going to be talking about the book, other adaptations, but specifically that one as well. Can't wait to go back to it. So I'm going to be watching the hell out of that before next week.
The second Cinderella. The second Cinderella, Aqua in Kingdom Hearts, where she goes to try on the slipper. She appears and then she stalls them, and then the prince shows up and stuff. But there was a second Cinderella. There was a second person to go and do the thing.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the sequel. Like
no. I was going to say, because I remember I said last time there's a second Cinderella. There's a second person to go and do the thing.
Oh, okay. It was in the form of a Kingdom Hearts. There we go. And we'll probably be talking about Kingdom Hearts next week as well, because it's one of the worlds in the first film, in the first game. So we'll be talking about that.
That's going to be a lot of them now, because we're on to the big ones.
Oh yeah. We'll be talking about Kingdom Hearts the week after as well for Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp.
What's after Peter Pan?
There's a fountain for Lady and the Tramp.
There was also a live-action movie that I've never seen.
Oh, I forgot that came out. Yeah, there was.
I never watched that.
Straight to Disney Plus, wasn't it? Oofed.
That's when you know it's bad.
Sleeping Beauty. Is there a Sleeping Beauty world in Birth by Sleep?
Yeah. There is. There's a whole section where it's just Maleficent's castle and getting Prince Eric out of the castle. Prince Philip. Eric's Little Mermaid, getting Prince Philip out of the castle and fighting the Unverse with him and stuff. Like there's the whole thing is just Maleficent.
I need to play that game. That game. Anyway, we're done for tonight. We'll round it off there, guys. So check back next week, next Monday again at 8 p.m. and we'll see you there for more Disney.